So in 2020, that's when I actually launched my own studio business. And so that was in July of 2020. And then in August of that same year, I got scammed majorly and was out about, long story short, was out about $2,000. And I just like, business was like barely a month old. And I'm like, how did this happen? And there was a lot of feelings of like, I am so stupid. How did I fall hook, line, and sinker for this? Like, this only happens to old people. And like, how did I get, pegged for this? And then I remember asking God, like, I'm trying to, build a business so that people can like literally see you through my art, and you let this happen? Like, there was some real hard Job level like throwing questions at God in that period. And once again, my family had to like step in, and because I kept just saying to myself out loud, I was like, I am so stupid for falling for this. And they're like, Xavier, stop saying that, because you're gonna make that your worldview if you keep saying it to yourself. So they're like, stop saying this. It's not true. Somebody, had malintent out there, and yeah, unfortunately, you fell prey to them, but it is not your fault. Like, stop taking on this identity of you are stupid, because that's not true. And it was like really just kind of laying into like shame. And like, I've had a lot of conversations the past year about, guilt versus shame. And it's like, guilt is, oh, I did something bad. And I could have said I felt guilty for falling prey to this, but shame is saying I am bad. And I was like lingering in that headspace, and that's what my family kind of had to like pull me back out of. So there were two like dark days like right after it happened. And I filed a police report. I went to the bank and I was like, hey, this is what happened. And they were like, well, you've endorsed the check, so you take on responsibility. So now anytime I sign a check, I'm like, but I exhausted all like what I could do on the human side of like trying to recoup my losses. I was like, I can't do anything else. God, if you want my business to survive, the ball is in your court. And my brother-in-law was with us at the time. And so he was like, maybe just blogging about this, just if anything, so that fellow artists don't fall prey to this type of scam would be helpful. So I did. And I kind of just like was very raw about like what I was feeling, all of that shame and whatnot. And I quoted Joshua 1:9 in there, and like shared it on Insta, and I was like, just doing the hashtags, and I, for some reason, I was like impressed, like put hashtag Joshua 1:9, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I shared it, and then lo and behold, there was this ministry called the Joshua 1:9 Foundation, and they saw it, and so the guy reaches out to me and he's like, I read your blog. I'd love to, talk to you. And I'm like already like mad wary. I was like, I just got scammed. Like, are you real? So checked him out. It was legit. And I was like, okay. So we exchanged contact information, and he calls me, and he just spends like a solid 20 minutes just like speaking life. Like, do not let this be the end of like your business. Like, clearly, like you have a voice that nobody else has, and you're going to be able to reach people who haven't been reached yet with the gospel. So you're a threat to Satan. So he's going to come at you like right out the gate very, very hard. And he's like, don't let this be the end of your story. And so the Joshua 1:9 Foundation was created in honor of this couple's son who passed away in basic training. And his name was Joshua, but Joshua 1:9 was kind of also like their family verse, and had been on his dog tags. So they kind of, they created these dog tags with that verse that they, send out to, and just support organizations that their son was passionate about, or just interests that he was passionate about. And they said, can I send you one of, the dog tags? And I was like, sure, I would love that. And so he prayed with me. And then at the end, he asked, he's like, I just want to see, like, how much in the hole are you? And then it was just like, this much. And he's like, oh, and I'm like, mm-hmm. So he had said, well, like, I want to help beyond like sending you a dog tag. Let me talk with my wife, and we'll see like what we're able to do. And I'm like, okay, like, this conversation has been more than enough, but I'm also not at a point where I'm about to turn down help in getting out of this situation. So we exchanged like Venmo information, and I was like, okay. So about 2 or 3 days later, I was subbing at the time. I come home and I like get a notification from Venmo, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And I see it's from him, and I was like, oh, I guess he, sent a little. And he had sent enough to get me out of the hole and like just get back into the positive. And then in the line where you can say like what it's for, he was like, to restore what was lost. And then it was like he quoted this like a couple verses, and so I followed up. First of all, I like threw my phone across the room because I was like, this does not happen. Especially, this was like when Florida was in like kind of partial lockdown. So I was like, and nobody was sure like what was happening with the economy. And I was like, especially in an economy, strangers do not give other people that they don't know from Adam that kind of money because they fell prey to a scam. And so I called him later, and I was just like at a loss for words. I was like, And so he's like, well, I want to tell you like why we decided to do that. So when he had finally talked to his wife, she was like, you know what? I was doing my study this morning, and one verse in particular stuck out to me, and I didn't know why until you just told me about the situation. And I think it's in Proverbs chapter 3, but it's basically the verse that says, if it's in your power to do good, do good. And so he's like, as soon as she said that, I was like, well, we're in a spot where we can do good. Let's do some good. And so that was just a very powerful, like undeniably like God moving in a fellow believer's heart to like help me and to kind of validate like, no, I know this is like an uncertain path, and you're not even sure like what visual arts ministry looks like, but you're on the right, you've taken, as Obi-Wan Kenobi once said, you've taken your first step into a larger world. So I was like, all right, God, clearly you want this thing to thrive. So ever since then, whenever I have like a doubt about God's ability to provide, I have like a massive landmark in my own business to go back to and be like, no, he came through. He'll come through again.